For centuries, Japanese monks on remote islands followed one daily ritual that modern neuroscience cannot explain away. They consumed 2 plants every morning before meditation, not for energy, not for flavor, for their brains. Researchers have now confirmed that compounds inside these plants rebuild the insulation around your nerves and control how fast your brain sends every signal. And by the end of this video, you will know exactly which 2 plants restore that insulation, how to grow both of them at home, and why no doctor in the Western world will ever prescribe them. Right now, inside your skull, billions of nerve fibers carry electrical signals from one region of your brain to another. Each of those fibers is wrapped in a fatty coating called the myelin sheath. Think of it like the rubber insulation around a copper wire. When that insulation is intact, signals travel at full speed. Your memory is sharp. Your reactions are instant. Your thinking is clear. But when that coating degrades, and it does degrade, signals slow down. They leak. They misfire. You forget why you walked into a room. You lose words mid-sentence. You feel slower than you used to be. Most people assume this is just aging. It is not. It is structural damage to your nerve insulation, and it is reversible. Monks across Japan and Okinawa understood this long before anyone owned a microscope. They selected specific plants, prepared them as teas and meals, and consumed them every single day. Monks in their 80s and 90s maintained cognitive sharpness that baffled the travelers and physicians who visited them. Western neuroscience has now identified the exact compounds responsible. The studies are published, the mechanisms are mapped, but no pharmaceutical company on Earth can patent a leaf that grows in a garden pot. The first plant has a name that means it literally grows back overnight. It is called Ashitaba. In Japanese, that translates to tomorrow's leaf. Cut a stem from this plant in the evening, and by the next morning, a new shoot is already pushing through. Monks on Hachijo Island, a volcanic island roughly 280 kilometers south of Tokyo, consumed Ashitaba daily for centuries. Edo period herbalism texts from the 1600s document its use for vitality and mental endurance. For generations, this was dismissed as folklore. Then in 2019, a research team led by Frank Madeo at the University of Graz published a study in Nature Communications that changed the conversation entirely. They isolated a compound inside Ashitaba called 4,4-dimethoxychalcone, known as DMC. What DMC does is remarkable. It activates autophagy. That is your body's built-in cellular cleanup system. Picture an old building where nobody has taken out the trash in years. Damaged proteins pile up, broken cell components accumulate. Toxic waste builds in corners. Autophagy is the janitorial crew that hauls all of it out. When autophagy slows down, which it does with age and poor diet, your neurons start drowning in their own debris. DMC switches the cleanup crew back on. But the part that matters most for your nerve insulation is what Ashitaba does to a specific type of brain cell called an oligodendrocyte. These are the factory cells that produce myelin. They manufacture the coating around your nerves. When oxidative stress damages oligodendrocytes, myelin production drops and your nerve signals slow down. Research published in the Journal of Medicinal Food confirmed that Ashitaba's chalcone compounds reduce oxidative damage in neural tissue, effectively shielding the very cells responsible for keeping your nerve insulation intact. What this means in practice is measurable. Protected oligodendrocytes produce more myelin. More myelin means faster signal transmission. Faster signals mean sharper memory, quicker reactions, and clearer thinking. You can drink Ashitaba as a tea. You can fry the young leaves in tempura batter, which is exactly how families on Hachijo Island still prepare it today. You can juice it raw or dry the leaves into a fine powder. It grows in pots on a balcony. It prefers coastal, temperate conditions and well-drained soil. A single plant costs less than a bottle of supplements, and it regenerates every time you harvest it. But the monks did not stop with one plant. The second one they used does something Ashitaba cannot. Instead of protecting the cells that make nerve insulation, it tells your brain to build entirely new ones. It is called Jiogolin. Across southern China, Vietnam, and Japan's Okinawa prefecture, it earned the name the immortality herb. In Okinawa, where the concentration of people living past 100 is among the highest anywhere on Earth, Jiogolin tea is a daily staple. Mountain-dwelling monks and villagers in these regions consumed it for generations, and researchers spent decades trying to understand why these populations aged so differently from the rest of the world. The answer is inside the leaf. Jiogolin contains over 80 compounds called gypanosides. Several of these are structurally identical to the active compounds found in Panax ginseng, but Jiogolin produces them in higher concentrations without requiring the years of careful cultivation that ginseng demands. A 2015 study published in Oxidative Medicine and Cellular Longevity demonstrated that gypanosides significantly upregulate BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. This is the master growth signal for your entire nervous system. BDNF tells neurons to survive. It tells them to branch. It tells them to strengthen their connections. And critically for nerve insulation, BDNF signals oligodendrocyte precursor cells to mature into fully functioning myelin-producing cells. This is the distinction that makes Jiogolin different from Ashitaba. Ashitaba protects your existing myelin factory from damage. Jiogolin tells your brain to build new factories. A 2017 study published in Phytotherapy Research confirmed that gypanosides provide neuroprotection by reducing neuroinflammation and suppressing reactive oxygen species in brain tissue. Separate research in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology showed that Jiogolin extract improved memory consolidation and reduced hippocampal neurodegeneration in aged animal models. The hippocampus is the region of your brain responsible for forming new memories. When it degrades, you lose the ability to learn. Jiogolin slows that degradation and supports the structural repair of the tissue itself. You can drink it as a mild, slightly sweet tea. The leaves can be eaten raw in salads. It is a vigorous climbing vine that grows on a simple trellis in partial shade. It tolerates poor soil. It spreads aggressively once established. A single plant produces harvestable leaves within weeks and keeps producing for years without replanting. 2 plants, both confirmed by published research in internationally recognized journals, both consumed by monks for centuries before any laboratory validated what they already knew. Both growable in a garden pot for less than the cost of 1 month of supplements. But they are not the only ones that science has been quietly confirming. There are 5 more plants you need to know by name. Each one solves a different problem, grows without industrial support, and has been systematically left out of every conversation your doctor has ever had with you.
66% of American adults drink coffee every single day. The average person goes through about 3 cups between morning and late afternoon. Over the course of a year, that adds up to well over $1,000 spent on a single habit. Walk through any city at 7 in the morning and you will see it everywhere. Paper cups clutched on subway platforms, drive-through lines wrapping around parking lots, office workers standing at the counter before they have spoken a single word to another human being. Coffee is the most accepted drug ritual on the planet, and almost nobody questions whether the delivery system is actually working. Here is what caffeine does inside your brain. There is a chemical called adenosine that builds up naturally throughout the day. Adenosine is the signal that tells your body to slow down and eventually sleep. Caffeine blocks that signal. It sits in the receptor and prevents adenosine from doing its job. So you feel awake, you feel alert, but caffeine does not give you energy. It hides your exhaustion. And as caffeine levels begin to drop from their peak after an hour or two, the mountain of adenosine it was blocking starts binding to your receptors all at once. That is the crash. That is why your afternoon feels heavier than your morning. And that is why you reach for a second cup and then a third. The problem is not the caffeine molecule itself. The problem is how coffee delivers it. When coffee beans are processed and brewed, the caffeine is highly water-soluble and enters your bloodstream rapidly, causing a sharp spike. The caffeine arrives in your bloodstream unbound and unregulated. It hits hard, it peaks fast, and it vanishes before lunch is over. The shaking hands, the racing heart, that anxious edge creeping in behind the focus, that is not a sensitivity problem. It is a delivery problem. The entire industry is built around this flaw. The global coffee market reached $249 billion in 2025. That number is expected to climb past $380 billion by 2033. The model is elegant. Sell a product that wears off quickly and guarantee a second purchase by mid-afternoon. The crash is not a flaw in the system. It is the system. Every afternoon slump is another transaction. Every second cup is another sale. But there is a plant that solved this delivery problem over 1,000 years ago. A leaf that binds the same caffeine molecule to a second compound and that slows its release, stretching it across 4 to 6 hours instead of 60 minutes. A leaf that entire communities relied on for centuries without ever needing a second dose. And nobody in the Western world ever told you it existed. The archaeological evidence of this plant's historic reach is astonishing. In the early 1970s, researchers analyzing the pouch of a medicine man buried in the Bolivian Andes, linked to cultures surrounding the Tiwanaku era, found traces of guayusa leaves alongside other ritual botanicals. The Tiwanaku civilization predated the Incas by centuries. It flourished roughly between 400 BC and 1200 AD across the highland plateau of what is now Bolivia and Peru. Inside the tomb, they found carefully arranged bundles of leaves. Each bundle contained exactly 5 leaves, and each one had been placed with the shiny side facing upward. The leaves had been preserved in that position for over 1,500 years. The discovery raised an immediate question. The plant those leaves came from does not grow at the altitude where the tomb was found. Someone had carried them hundreds of miles across mountain ranges and river valleys to be buried alongside the dead. Whatever this leaf was, it was considered so valuable that it served as provision for the afterlife. Some kind of organized trade had to have existed over 2,000 years ago just to move this plant across the Andes. That plant is called guayusa. Its botanical name is Ilex guayusa, and it belongs to the holly family. It grows as a tall evergreen tree in the upper Amazon rainforest, primarily across Ecuador, Peru, and Colombia. It is one of only 4 known caffeinated holly trees on Earth. The indigenous Quechua people of Ecuador call it the night watchman, and the name tells you everything about what it does. In Quechua communities scattered across the Ecuadorian Amazon, families rise at 3 in the morning. They gather around a fire while the jungle is still dark and the birds have not yet begun to call. They brew the thick, glossy leaves of the guayusa tree into a strong tea and drink together as a family. The elders teach the younger members about ancestral myths and hunting techniques and the values that hold their community together. The Quechua also believe that guayusa opens the door to vivid dreams, and the elders interpret those dreams to guide decisions for the entire group. When the sun finally rises, the hunters leave for the forest. They move through some of the most demanding terrain on Earth for the entire day on the strength of that single cup brewed before dawn. No second dose, no midday crash, no afternoon rebrew. There is a legend among the Quechua people about how this plant was first discovered. The story tells of a time when the tribe prayed for a plant that would help them enter the world of dreams. Twin members of the tribe received a vision that led them to a stairway reaching into the sky. At the top, they met their ancestors, who introduced them to a leaf that would open the dream world to anyone who drank from it. They brought the leaves back to the earth. And according to the legend, anyone who drinks guayusa will always return to the jungle. The plant binds you to the land. When Spanish missionaries arrived in the Amazon in the 1600s, they encountered these rituals firsthand. A Jesuit priest named Father Juan Lorenzo Lucero documented the daily consumption of guayusa among indigenous peoples in 1683. The Jesuits did not dismiss the plant. They recognized its value and actively traded it. Nearly 2 centuries later, in 1857, a British botanist named Richard Spruce found a grove of guayusa trees near the town of Banos in Ecuador that had been under continuous cultivation since before European contact. Western observers documented this plant across 3 centuries, and then the knowledge quietly disappeared behind language barriers and colonial indifference and never reached the broader Western world. So what is actually inside this leaf that makes the caffeine behave so differently from coffee? The answer is not a single compound. It is a system of 3 working together. The first is caffeine. Guayusa leaves contain roughly the same amount of caffeine as a standard cup of coffee. The molecule is identical. It is the exact same caffeine your morning espresso delivers. The second is theanine. This is an amino acid found in only 2 commonly consumed plants on Earth. One is green tea, the other is guayusa. Theanine promotes calm alertness. It smooths out the sharp edges of caffeine stimulation without reducing its effect. Think of it this way. Coffee caffeine is a car on an open highway with no speed limit. It accelerates to 100 miles per hour in seconds and runs out of fuel just as fast. Guayusa caffeine is the same car with a governor installed. It reaches a steady cruising speed and holds it there for hours. Theanine is the governor. The third compound is theobromine. This is the same gentle stimulant found in dark chocolate. Theobromine is milder than caffeine but lasts considerably longer. It extends the tail end of the energy curve, keeping a soft stimulation running long after the caffeine peak has passed. Where caffeine operates like a switch that flips on hard and off hard, theobromine behaves more like a dimmer that holds a warm glow in the room long after the main light has been turned down. It also acts as a mild vasodilator, gently widening blood vessels and improving circulation. That means more oxygen reaching your brain and muscles during the exact hours when coffee drinkers are reaching for their second or third cup just to stay functional. When you combine caffeine for the initial lift, theanine for the smoothing effect, and theobromine for the sustained tail, you get an energy profile that no other single plant on Earth can match. While green tea has theanine and yerba mate has theobromine, guayusa uniquely packs a significant, balanced punch of all 3 compounds naturally in a single leaf. No blending required, no stacking supplements from different bottles, and no guessing at ratios. The leaf evolved this combination over millennia in the Amazon canopy and delivers it in exactly the proportion your nervous system can use without overloading any single pathway. Nature solved the formulation problem long before the supplement industry even recognized there was one. The result is not more energy, it is better energy. People who drink guayusa describe a clean and focused wakefulness that lasts 4 to 6 hours. No jitters, no racing heart, no anxious edge, and most importantly, no crash. When the effects fade, they fade gradually. There is no wall. There is no sudden flood of exhaustion at 2 in the afternoon. You return to baseline the way you ease out of a deep and restful night of sleep. Writers and programmers who have switched from coffee report longer, unbroken stretches of concentration. Athletes who train in the early morning describe sustained output across entire sessions without the familiar mid-workout dip. Parents managing long days with young children talk about staying patient and present through the evening hours instead of running on fumes by dinner. The energy is not louder, it is longer. And that distinction changes how an entire day feels from start to finish. There's also something that rarely gets mentioned in conversations about caffeine. Coffee on an empty stomach triggers a sharp rise in stomach acid. That burning sensation many people feel after their first morning cup is not imagined. It is a direct response to acids in the roasted bean interacting with the stomach lining. Over months and years, this can lead to persistent discomfort that people learn to live with and never connect back to their morning habit. Guayusa does not do this. The leaf produces a tea that is naturally smooth with a pH much closer to neutral. People who have given up coffee because of stomach issues often find they can drink guayusa without any of that familiar burn. The experience is closer to drinking a mild herbal tea than anything resembling a dark roast espresso. And beyond the stomach, there's the issue of sleep quality. Because coffee caffeine spikes and clears so rapidly, many people drink their last cup at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, thinking it will be out of their system by bedtime. But residual caffeine fragments and elevated cortisol levels can linger well into the evening, quietly degrading sleep architecture without ever making you feel fully awake. Because guayusa avoids the sudden massive blood sugar and cortisol spikes associated with heavy coffee crashes, your body handles the come down much more smoothly long before bedtime. It gives morning energy that does not sabotage nighttime rest. That alone changes the entire equation. The caffeine in guayusa releases slowly because the natural compounds in the unroasted leaf bind to it and regulate how quickly it enters the bloodstream. This is the opposite of what happens in coffee, where high-temperature roasting destroys those binding agents and leaves the caffeine completely exposed. The Quichua did not need a laboratory to understand this. They drank 1 cup before dawn and worked through the entire day. 15 centuries of lived experience told them what the chemistry now confirms. The science is clear. The history stretches back 1,500 years. The compound profile is verified. So here is the question that should bother you. Why have most people in the Western world never heard the word guayusa? The answer is not complicated, it is economic gravity. The global coffee market is worth $249 billion. The entire guayusa market was valued at under $10 million in 2024. $249 billion versus $10 million. That is not a competition. That is erasure by scale. One industry has lobbyists and marketing teams and research grants and a retail footprint spanning every airport and highway exit in the developed world. The other has a few hundred farming families in a single province of Ecuador. Search any medical research database for studies on coffee and you will find tens of thousands of results. Search for guayusa and you will find a few hundred. That gap is not because guayusa is less effective. It is because no multinational corporation funds guayusa research. Companies invest in science that supports their existing products. They do not invest in science that makes their products unnecessary. And a leaf you can grow at home cannot be patented or controlled. The American branded coffee shop market alone is worth $54 billion, with over 42,000 stores operating across 500 different brands. Try to find a single one that sells fresh guayusa. The infrastructure does not exist because the economic incentive does not exist. And here is what makes it sharper. The energy drink industry already knows about this plant. Manufacturers are quietly sourcing guayusa compounds for premium beverages. They extract the active ingredients. They stabilize them in proprietary formulations. They sell them for $4 to $5 a can. And at no point do they tell you that the whole leaf grows on a tree you can keep beside your window. They count on you never discovering that the source plant costs less than a meal and produces for years. The pattern is familiar by now. A plant that generates no repeat revenue generates no marketing budget. A crop that regrows without replanting creates no seed sales. A leaf you can harvest from your own balcony supports no supply chain. What cannot be owned cannot be sold. What cannot be sold cannot be marketing. What cannot be marketing does not enter public awareness. But the plant does not care about market dynamics. It cares about sunlight and water and a container big enough for its roots. And you can grow it at home far more easily than anyone in the beverage industry wants you to believe. Guayusa is an evergreen tree in the holly family. In the wild Amazon canopy, it grows up to 30 meters tall, but in a container, it stays compact and manageable for years, the same way a potted fig tree or citrus tree adapts to life on a balcony. The leaves are thick and glossy and deep green with gently serrated edges. Even before you harvest a single leaf, it is a beautiful plant to keep. Start with a pot at least 5 gallons in size with good drainage holes at the bottom. Fill it with a standard well-draining potting mix from any garden center. Guayusa prefers a slightly acidic to neutral soil, roughly between 6 and 7 on the pH scale. Place the pot near your brightest window, ideally facing south where it catches strong light for most of the day. If you have a balcony or patio and your climate stays warm, the plant will thrive outdoors through the summer. Bring it inside when temperatures start dropping below the upper 60s. The plant performs best between 68 and 86 degrees Fahrenheit with consistent humidity. Water regularly, but never leave the roots sitting in standing water. The goal is moist soil, not soggy soil. Think about the Amazon floor where this tree evolved. Constant gentle moisture from above, fast drainage through the root zone below, warm air drifting through the canopy. The fastest path to a productive plant is a rooted cutting or starter from a specialty tropical nursery online. Growing from seed is possible but slow and requires consistent warmth and high humidity for germination. Feed the plant with a light application of slow-release fertilizer 3 times a year and it will ask for nothing else. Once the plant establishes itself and begins putting out strong new growth, you can start harvesting mature leaves by hand. Dry them in a warm, ventilated space or in a dehydrator set to low temperature. Steep the dried leaves in hot water for 5 to 7 minutes. The tea is smooth and mildly sweet, with none of the bitterness you find in green tea and none of the acidity that makes coffee harsh on an empty stomach. One established Guayusa plant produces enough leaves to support a daily tea habit for years. Now picture what you have built: a compact evergreen shrub in a large pot on your sunniest balcony corner, glossy deep green leaves catching the morning light, a plant that requires no annual replanting and no seed reordering and no subscription of any kind. A cup of tea every morning that delivers 4 to 6 hours of steady and focused energy from a leaf you harvested with your own hands. No plastic pods piling up under the kitchen counter. No afternoon crash sending you back to the drive-thru. No quarterly earnings report anywhere on earth depending on your dependency. Think back to where this started. Your brain runs out of energy every afternoon. You reach for coffee, it spikes, it crashes, you reach again. Thousands of dollars over a lifetime, thousands of cups, and every single one of them wearing off before lunch. Deep in the Ecuadorian Amazon, Quechua families have been waking before dawn to drink 1 cup of guayusa that carries them through an entire day of labor in the jungle. They have been doing this for over 1,500 years. No second cup, no crash, no subscription. That leaf is the same one the energy drink industry is now quietly extracting and concentrating and selling back to you at premium prices in branded cans that never mention where it came from. It is also the same leaf you can grow in a single pot on your balcony for the price of 1 starter plant from a nursery. 1 plant, 1 pot, 1,500 years of proof. And the only reason you are hearing about this now is that nobody profits when you grow the answer yourself. Picture yourself 10 years from now. You are sitting at a family dinner. Your grandchildren are telling you about their day at school, but something is wrong. You cannot remember their names. You search your mind and find nothing but fog. This is not some distant nightmare. This is happening to 47 million people worldwide right now. And that number doubles every 20 years. Here is what nobody tells you about your brain. Starting around age 25, your body begins producing less of 2 critical proteins. Scientists call them nerve growth factor and brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Think of these proteins as fertilizer for your neurons. Without them, brain cells cannot maintain their connections. They cannot form new memories. They cannot repair damage. Walk into any neurologist office in Boston or Los Angeles or London, ask them what happens when NGF levels drop. They will tell you about shrinking hippocampus regions. They will explain how the brain literally gets smaller on MRI scans. They will show you images that look like a grape turning into a raisin. Now here is where it gets frustrating. The pharmaceutical industry knows about this problem. They have known for decades. In 1986, a scientist named Rita Levi-Montalcini won the Nobel Prize for discovering nerve growth factor. She proved that this protein was essential for brain health. And what happened next? Drug companies spent billions trying to create synthetic versions they could patent and sell. The problem is that synthetic NGF does not cross the blood-brain barrier effectively. Imagine trying to deliver a package to someone inside a fortress. The walls are too thick, the gates are too narrow, your delivery never arrives. That is what happens with most pharmaceutical attempts to boost NGF. So what does the supplement industry do instead? They sell you pills filled with compounds that may or may not work. Walk down the vitamin aisle at any CVS or Walgreens. You will see hundreds of bottles promising better memory, better focus, better brain health. The labels show happy elderly people doing crossword puzzles. But here is what those labels do not show you. In 2023, the FDA sent warning letters to dozens of supplement companies for making unsubstantiated claims. Consumer Lab tested popular brain supplements and found that 30% did not contain what their labels promised. Some had contaminants, others had far less active ingredient than advertised. And the prices. A single bottle of premium brain supplements costs $40 to $60. That gives you maybe a 30-day supply. Do the math. That is over $500 per year for something that might not even work, for something that might not even contain what it claims. Meanwhile, families are struggling. A mother in Ohio watches her grocery bill climb higher every month. A father in Michigan chooses between his prescription medications and his electric bill. And somewhere in a corporate boardroom, executives discuss how to increase profit margins on supplements that cost pennies to manufacture. This is the world we live in. A world where brain health has become a luxury item. A world where the solutions are locked behind price tags most people cannot afford. A world where something that should be as common as vegetables has been turned into a premium product. But what if I told you there is another way? What if there was something that actually stimulates your brain to produce its own nerve growth factor? Something backed by peer-reviewed research from universities in Japan, Australia, and the United States. Something that has been used for centuries but hidden in plain sight. This is what Secrets Beneath Nature exists to uncover. The solutions that nature provides. The knowledge that benefits everyone, not just those who can afford it. Deep in the hardwood forests of North America, something extraordinary grows on dying trees. You might walk right past it. It looks nothing like the mushrooms you see in grocery stores. No cap, no stem. Instead, imagine a white waterfall frozen in place, cascading spines that look like icicles made of cotton. Some people say it resembles a lion's mane, and that is exactly what scientists call it. Hericium arenaceus, lion's mane mushroom. This organism has been hiding one of nature's most remarkable secrets. In ancient China and Japan, Buddhist monks consumed lion's mane before long meditation sessions. They believed it enhanced their focus and mental clarity. For centuries, this was dismissed as folklore, superstition, the kind of thing modern science ignores. Then in 1991, a Japanese scientist named Hirokazu Kawagishi made a discovery that changed everything. Working at Shizuoka University, Kawagishi isolated compounds from lion's mane that did something no other natural substance had done. They stimulated nerve growth factor synthesis in human cells. Think about what that means. This mushroom contains compounds that tell your brain to make more of its own repair chemicals. Not synthetic substitutes, not pharmaceutical approximations. Your own natural NGF. Kawagishi identified two families of compounds, hericenones found in the fruiting body, erinacines found in the mycelium. Both of these compound families can cross the blood-brain barrier. Remember that fortress analogy, these compounds have the key to the gate. In 2009, researchers in Japan conducted a landmark study. They gave lion's mane extract to adults between 50 and 80 years old who had mild cognitive impairment. The study was double-blind and placebo-controlled. This is the gold standard of scientific research. Neither the participants nor the researchers knew who was getting the real supplement. After 16 weeks, the results stunned the scientific community. The group taking lion's mane showed significant improvements in cognitive function. Their test scores improved, while the placebo group stayed the same. But here is what makes this study truly important. When participants stopped taking lion's mane, their improvements began to fade. This tells us something crucial. Lion's mane is not a one-time fix. It requires consistent consumption to maintain benefits. The supplement industry loves this finding. It means repeat customers. It means ongoing revenue. But what if you did not need to buy from them at all? Fast forward to 2023. Researchers at the University of Queensland in Australia published findings that expanded our understanding even further. A scientist named Frederick Meunier and his team discovered a new compound called Harricine A. This compound activates a pathway in the brain that enhances memory formation. In their experiments, mice given Harricine A showed significantly enhanced hippocampal memory. The hippocampus is where your brain converts short-term memories into long-term storage. It is literally the filing cabinet of your mind. The Queensland team found that Harricine A promotes the growth of nerve extensions called neurites. These are the branches that neurons use to connect with each other. More branches mean more connections. More connections mean better memory and faster thinking. But the research does not stop there. Scientists have discovered that lion's mane also increases brain-derived neurotrophic factor. BDNF works alongside NGF to maintain brain health. A study published in the International Journal of Molecular Sciences confirmed that adenosine compounds stimulate both NGF and BDNF expression. One research paper stated that these compounds exert anti-neuroinflammatory and neuroprotective properties. Inflammation in the brain is now linked to almost every cognitive disorder: depression, anxiety, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. Reducing brain inflammation could be one of the most important things you do for long-term mental health. So why have you never heard about this? Why is lion's mane not on every news channel? Why is your doctor not recommending it? The answer is not conspiracy, it is economics. You cannot patent a mushroom. Any company can grow lion's mane. Any person can grow lion's mane. This means no exclusive rights, no monopoly pricing, no massive profit margins. When a pharmaceutical company spends billions developing a drug, they get 20 years of patent protection. They can charge whatever the market will bear. The lion's mane market was valued at $680 million in 2025. Analysts project it will reach $1.38 billion by 2035. Another report suggests the supplement market alone could hit $1.6 billion by 2034. These are not small numbers. This is a massive industry built on something that grows on dead trees. Here is what they do not advertise. You can grow this yourself. The exact same organism, the exact same compounds, for a fraction of the cost. With no special skills and no expensive equipment, you can do this in your kitchen, garage, or spare closet. This is what they do not want you to know, not because of some shadowy conspiracy, but because your independence is their lost revenue. Now let me show you exactly how to do it. Everything you need costs less than $20 for your first batch. After that, you can produce pounds of lion's mane for essentially the cost of water and wood pellets. Here is your shopping list: a 5-gallon bucket with a lid. You can get this at any hardware store for around $4. Hardwood fuel pellets are sold for pellet stoves and grills. A 40-pound bag costs about $5 and will last multiple grows. Lion's mane spawn is the living fungal material that colonizes your substrate. You can order spawn online from companies like North Spore or Fungi Perfecti for $10 to $15. That is it. Bucket, pellets, spawn, under $20 to start. Some people ask about additional tools, a drill with a half-inch bit for making holes, a spray bottle for maintaining humidity, a simple thermometer. You probably already own these. If not, another $10 covers everything. Compare this to supplements. One bottle at $40 gives you 1 month. One bucket gives you multiple harvests over several months. Then you can use that harvest to start new buckets. The math is not even close. The beauty of growing lion's mane at home lies in how forgiving the process actually is. Unlike many gourmet mushrooms that demand laboratory conditions and precise sterilization, lion's mane thrives with the bucket method because hardwood pellets create a naturally resistant environment. The pellets arrive compressed and nearly sterile from the heat used in their manufacturing, which means you skip the intimidating pressure cookers and sterile technique that scare most beginners away from mushroom cultivation. The concept is elegantly simple. You are creating a miniature forest environment inside a 5-gallon bucket. The hardwood pellets, once hydrated, transform into fluffy sawdust that mimics the dead and dying trees where lion's mane grows in nature. The bucket provides a contained, humid microclimate. Holes drilled into the sides become the fruiting points where mushrooms emerge, just as they would burst through bark in the wild. Preparing the substrate feels almost meditative. Dry pellets poured into a container look nothing like what mushrooms need. But add water and wait 30 minutes and you witness a transformation. The compressed wood absorbs moisture, swells, and breaks apart into something soft and alive with potential. The ratio matters: roughly equal weights of pellets and water, but experienced growers develop an intuitive feel for the right moisture level. You want substrate that holds together when squeezed, damp but not dripping, like a wrung-out sponge. Inoculation is where the magic begins. Spawn is simply lion's mane mycelium growing on a carrier material like sawdust or grain, and it gets mixed throughout your hydrated substrate. Think of it like adding yeast to bread dough. You are introducing the living organism that will transform your raw materials into something extraordinary. Layering spawn throughout the bucket ensures the mycelium can colonize efficiently, spreading its white threads in every direction until the entire substrate becomes one interconnected network. The colonization phase requires patience and very little else. Covered and tucked away in a closet or basement, your bucket needs only stable temperatures and time. Over 2 to 4 weeks, the spawn spreads invisibly at first, then visibly as white growth appears throughout the substrate. This mycelial network is digesting the wood, breaking down complex compounds, and preparing for the reproductive act of fruiting. Watching through the holes you drilled, you see the transformation happening. White threads become white masses, become a solid block of colonized substrate. Fruiting initiation happens when you change the environment. Remove the tape covering the holes. Introduce fresh air and indirect light. Most importantly, provide humidity. Lion's mane evolved in misty forests and damp woodlands, and it expects moisture in the air when forming its fruiting bodies. A spray bottle works for small operations. A simple humidity tent made from a plastic bag with holes accomplishes the same thing. Some growers use small humidifiers in enclosed spaces. The first pins appear within a week or two, tiny white bumps pushing through the holes like curious explorers. Over the following days, these pins transform into the spectacular cascading forms that give lion's mane its name. The spines elongate. The mass grows. What started as a pinhead becomes a fist-sized cluster of white tendrils. Harvest timing matters for quality. Young lion's mane with short spines tastes best and contains the highest concentration of beneficial compounds. Wait too long and the mushroom yellows, toughens, and begins releasing spores. A gentle twist detaches the fruiting body cleanly from the substrate. And here is what surprises most first-time growers. The bucket is not finished. After resting for a week or so, new pins form and a second flush emerges, then a third, sometimes a fourth. One bucket keeps producing 4 months. The real elegance emerges when you scale this into a rotation system. 3 buckets started at weekly intervals create overlapping harvest cycles. While bucket 1 rests between flushes, bucket 2 is fruiting, and bucket 3 is colonizing. The result is continuous production, fresh lion's mane every week or two, indefinitely, for the cost of wood pellets and water, and it goes further still. Experienced growers save portions of healthy colonized substrate to inoculate new batches. The mycelium propagates itself. After your initial spawn purchase, you may never need to buy spawn again. What starts as a $20 experiment becomes a self-sustaining system, producing hundreds of dollars worth of fresh mushrooms year after year. The environmental conditions that make lion's mane thrive are surprisingly common in most homes. Temperatures from 65 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit cover the ideal growing window, and most living spaces naturally fall within that range. Basements tend to stay cool and stable year-round. Spare closets offer darkness during colonization and controlled light during fruiting. Even the space under a kitchen sink can work for a single bucket operation. The mushroom adapts to whatever corner of your home you can spare. Troubleshooting becomes intuitive once you understand what the organism needs. Contamination, the greatest fear of new growers, announces itself clearly through color. Healthy lion's mane mycelium is pure white. Green indicates trichoderma mold. Black signals bacterial infection. Blue or gray patches mean competing fungi have moved in. When contamination appears, the solution is simple. Discard that batch, clean your workspace, and start fresh with new materials. The low cost of supplies means failure teaches without punishing. Moisture management separates successful grows from frustrating ones. Too wet and bacterial contamination flourishes. Too dry and the mycelium stalls or the fruiting bodies crack and abort. The spray bottle becomes your most important tool during the fruiting phase. A fine mist applied several times daily keeps humidity high without waterlogging the substrate. Some growers install simple hygrometers to track humidity levels. Others develop a feel for it over time, reading the substrate's appearance the way a baker reads dough. Fresh lion's mane tastes incredible. Chefs describe it as similar to lobster or crab. That is not an exaggeration. The texture is meaty and succulent. Slice it into thick steaks. Sear in butter until golden brown on each side. Season with salt and pepper. You will understand why high-end restaurants charge $30 for a lion's mane dish. But if you cannot eat it all fresh, preservation is simple. Slice and dehydrate the mushrooms until completely dry. Store in airtight containers. Use a coffee grinder to create your own powder. Fill your own capsules if you prefer. One flush can create months' worth of supplementation. Let me put the economics in perspective. A single bucket might produce 3 pounds of fresh mushroom across all flushes. That fresh weight converts to roughly 6 ounces dried. Commercial lion's mane powder costs about $25 for 3 ounces. You just produce $50 worth of supplement for about $2 in materials. Do this with 3 rotating buckets over a year. You could produce $600 or more in supplement value for maybe $20 in ongoing costs. This is why the supplement industry does not promote home growing. Every grower is a lost customer, and the quality difference matters. Commercial supplements vary wildly. Some use mycelium grown on grain, which dilutes the active compounds with starch. Some use extracts that may destroy heat-sensitive compounds. When you grow your own fruiting bodies, you control everything. You know exactly what you are consuming. This is bigger than just saving money on supplements. This is about something fundamental. For decades, we have been trained to be consumers. Our health has been outsourced to corporations. We buy pills made in factories thousands of miles away. We trust labels designed by marketing departments. We hand over our well-being to systems that profit from our dependence. Growing your own medicine changes that relationship. It sounds dramatic, but think about what it means. You are not asking permission from anyone. You are not dependent on supply chains. You are not hoping that a company maintains quality standards. You are taking direct responsibility for your own cognitive health. In kitchens across America, something is shifting. A grandmother in Vermont tends to her mushroom buckets the same way her mother tended a vegetable garden. A college student in Oregon produces his own nootropics instead of spending money he does not have on expensive supplements. A retired teacher in Florida discovers a hobby that keeps her mind sharp while providing something she can share with neighbors. This is not some fringe movement. Mushroom cultivation communities are growing worldwide. Online forums share techniques and troubleshooting. Local mycological societies host workshops. What was once esoteric knowledge is becoming accessible to anyone willing to learn. And the ripple effects extend beyond individual health. When you grow lion's mane, you understand fungi in a new way. You see how they transform dead material into living medicine. You witness decomposition and regeneration happening in your own home. Children who watch this process learn about biology in ways no textbook can teach. There is something deeply satisfying about eating food you grew yourself. It tastes better, not just psychologically, but actually better. The freshness is incomparable. The connection to what nourishes you is real and tangible. Consider what consistent lion's mane consumption might mean for your future. The research shows benefits require ongoing intake. Japanese study participants improved over 16 weeks. When they stopped, improvements faded. This tells us that lion's mane is not building permanent structures. It is supporting ongoing processes like watering a garden. Stop watering and the plants struggle. Keep watering and they thrive. Your rotating bucket system provides that continuous support. 52 weeks a year, year after year, fresh lion's mane available whenever you need it. Imagine yourself 5 years from now. You have been consuming lion's mane consistently. Your morning routine includes adding fresh sautéed lion's mane to your eggs or blending homemade powder into your coffee. Whatever fits your lifestyle. Your brain has had steady support for NGF and BDNF production. The connections between neurons have been maintained, perhaps even strengthened. While others your age notice increasing forgetfulness, you stay sharp. You remember names, you follow complex conversations, you learn new skills without the frustration that used to accompany unfamiliar tasks. This is not fantasy. This is what the science suggests is possible. Researchers at institutions around the world continue studying lion's mane. Every year brings new findings, new confirmations of what traditional cultures knew centuries ago. The University of Malaya found that lion's mane promotes neurite outgrowth in brain cells. Studies in Korea demonstrated antidepressant effects. Research in China showed protection against cognitive decline in animal models of Alzheimer's disease. The evidence keeps mounting, and you can access all of this for the cost of a bucket and some wood pellets. Here is what I want you to understand. The knowledge to grow this exists. It is not complicated. It is not expensive. It requires no special talent. The only question is whether you will act on it. Every week you wait is a week without support for your brain. Every dollar you spend on overpriced supplements is money that could go elsewhere. Every harvest you do not make is food and medicine left on the table. Your brain is not going to get younger. The decline that started at 25 continues every day, but you now know something that most people do not. You know there is an organism that stimulates your brain to produce its own repair chemicals. You know you can grow it yourself. You know it costs almost nothing. The companies selling $40 bottles hope you never try this. They hope you stay confused. They hope you believe it is too complicated. They hope you keep buying month after month, year after year. But you have seen through that. You understand the economics. You understand the science. You understand that nature provides what corporations want to sell you. A 5-gallon bucket sits in hardware stores across the country. Hardwood pellets fill shelves at home improvement centers. Spawn ships in discreet packages to any address. The starting line is right there, waiting for you to cross it. What you do next is entirely up to you. Right now, 50 million people worldwide are living with dementia. The most common form is Alzheimer's disease. It accounts for 60 to 80% of all cases, and the numbers climb every decade. Neurologists prescribe medications costing tens of thousands of dollars per year. Families liquidate retirement savings to cover memory care. Pharmaceutical companies race to develop new treatments. But the most consistent finding in brain research over the past 20 years points to something far simpler than any drug. The brains of Alzheimer's patients are depleted of one fatty acid, omega-3, The molecule your brain craves most is called DHA. It concentrates in the membranes of your neurons. It supports the synapses where memories form. It keeps those connections flexible, responsive, and alive. Without adequate DHA, neurons become rigid, signals slow, memories fail to encode. The hippocampus, the brain region that forms new memories, physically shrinks in volume. Researchers have measured this directly. People with higher omega-3 levels in midlife had larger hippocampal volume and scored higher on cognitive tests decades later. So where does DHA come from? The nutrition industry gives one answer: fish. Eat salmon, take fish oil capsules, subscribe to a monthly krill oil delivery. By 2024, the global omega-3 supplement market reached $7.68 billion in annual revenue. Fish oil alone controls over 60% of that market. Every single capsule requires industrial extraction, purification, encapsulation, quality control, and cold chain shipping across oceans. The complexity creates barriers to entry, and the barriers protect profit margins. Here is what the capsule bottle never mentions. Plants produce a molecule called alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA. Your body can convert ALA into the omega-3 forms your brain actually uses, EPA and DHA. The textbooks acknowledge this pathway exists. What the textbooks emphasize is that this conversion is terribly inefficient. In most adults, the conversion from ALA to EPA runs about 5 to 10%. The conversion from ALA all the way to DHA falls below 1%. In men, it is often undetectable. This is the statistic the fish oil industry built its empire on. Plants cannot feed your brain. The conversion is too low. You need their capsules. And for every plant previously studied, they were correct. Flaxseed delivers ALA and nothing else. Chia delivers ALA and nothing else. Walnuts deliver ALA and nothing else. Every plant, omega-3 source on the market, hands your body raw lumber and hopes it can build a house. Your body burns most of that lumber for fuel. Your brain receives almost nothing. But what if one plant skipped the conversion entirely? What if one plant contained the exact molecule that was supposed to be impossible outside the ocean? And what if you had been pulling that plant out of your garden beds for years and throwing it in the trash? Every nutrition textbook draws the same line. On one side, the ocean, where fish and algae produce EPA and DHA directly. On the other side, the land, where plants produce only ALA. The division is clean. It is taught in every medical school on Earth. Nobody questioned it for decades. Then researchers tested a common weed and found something that should not exist. They found ALA, which was expected. They also found EPA, not a trace amount, not a contamination error, measurable, reproducible icosapentaenoic acid in the leaves of a land plant. The molecule that was supposed to exist only in the sea was growing between paving stones in a parking lot. The plant is Portulaca oleracea, common purslane. You will recognize it when you see it. Small jade-green, paddle-shaped leaves on thick, reddish stems that spread outward in a star pattern close to the ground. It is a succulent. It stores water in its fleshy tissues. It thrives in heat, drought, and total neglect. It grows on every inhabited continent on the planet, and it is the most commonly reported weed species in the world. 100 grams of fresh purslane leaves contain 300 to 400 milligrams of ALA. But unlike flax, unlike chia, unlike any other plant your nutritionist has ever recommended, purslane also contains preformed EPA. Your brain does not need to convert it. The molecule arrives ready to use. This is the richest source of omega-3 ever recorded in a green leafy vegetable. You have walked past this plant 1,000 times. You may have pulled it from your flower beds last July. You may have sprayed it with herbicide on a Saturday morning while mowing the lawn. Those thick little leaves with the reddish stems that you tossed in the yard waste bin were delivering the one molecule your brain cannot manufacture on its own. And you killed them because someone told you they were weeds. Walk through the Mercado de la Merced in Mexico City on any given afternoon. Find the herb vendors near the south entrance. You will see bundles of green succulent stems stacked in neat piles beside the cilantro and the epazote. Ask for verdolaga. The vendor will not even blink. Verdolaga is as ordinary in a Mexican kitchen as parsley is in an American one. Families stew it with pork and tomatillos and green chilies in clay pots. They fold it into breakfast tacos. They eat it raw in salads dressed with lime and salt. Millions of people across Mexico eat this plant every single week without ever hearing the words omega-3. Fly 12 hours east to Athens, Greece. Walk into any neighborhood taverna during the summer months. Order horta, the traditional plate of wild greens dressed in olive oil and lemon juice. Purslane will be on the plate. Greeks call it andrakla or glistrida. Grandmothers on the islands have gathered it from hillsides and stone walls for as long as anyone can remember. In Turkey, it is semizotu, mixed into cool yogurt salads with garlic and dried mint in the villages of central Anatolia. In India, it is kulfa, cooked with cumin and turmeric into a simple stew served over rice. In the Middle East, it anchors the fattoush salad beside tomatoes, cucumber, and crispy pita with sumac. In China, it has been called a vegetable for long life for centuries. 500 million people across Asia, the Mediterranean, Latin America, and the Middle East eat purslane on a regular basis. It appears at breakfast tables and at wedding feasts, at roadside stalls, and in the kitchens of grandmothers who have never once stepped inside a laboratory. The ancient record reaches back 4,000 years. Ancient Egyptian medical papyri documented this plant. Pliny the Elder, the Roman naturalist who perished in 79 AD while watching Vesuvius erupt across the Bay of Naples, recommended it in his encyclopedic Natural History. Hippocrates prescribed it for inflammation in ancient Greece. Chinese pharmacopoeias from the Han Dynasty described it over 2,000 years ago on silk and bamboo. Picture a Roman household in the 1st century, a family garden behind a stone villa on a hillside outside Naples, thick mats of purslane spreading across warm soil between grapevines and fig trees. A grandmother picks the leaves for the evening meal and tosses them with olive oil pressed that morning. Her grandchildren eat without thinking. Their neurons receive pre-formed EPA from a garden plant. No capsules, no industry, no subscription, just a leaf and the afternoon sun. In English, this plant never received a single clear name. Purslane, pigweed, hogweed, fatweed, pusle, verdolaga, andrakla, semizotu, kulfa. 10 names in 10 languages, no unified Western identity. When a plant has no consistent name, it has no consistent presence in databases, cookbooks, or research funding proposals. The fragmentation was not intentional, but the result was erasure. 3 generations of Americans grew up and never once heard the word purslane. That alone would change how you think about omega-3. But it is not even the most remarkable thing about this plant. Remember the conversion problem. A LA from flax and chia must pass through a biological bottleneck before your brain can use it. That bottleneck fails in most people. You eat the flaxseed muffin, you feel virtuous about it. Less than 5% of that omega-3 ever reaches the form your neurons actually need. The rest gets burned as energy or stored as body fat. Purslane bypasses this bottleneck entirely. It delivers pre-formed EPA directly into your bloodstream. Your body does not need to convert anything. The molecule crosses the blood-brain barrier in a form your neurons can immediately incorporate. This is the difference between handing someone a pile of bricks and handing them a finished wall. But purslane does not deliver omega-3 alone. It delivers omega-3 inside a protective package of antioxidants that the brain specifically requires. 100 grams of fresh leaves contain 12 milligrams of vitamin E, 26 milligrams of vitamin C, nearly 2 milligrams of beta-carotene, and 15 milligrams of glutathione, one of the most powerful antioxidants your body produces. This matters because omega-3 fatty acids are fragile molecules. They oxidize easily when exposed to heat and light. Fish oil sitting in a gelatin capsule on a warm pharmacy shelf begins to degrade before you ever twist the cap off. You swallow oxidized molecules and deliver damaged fats into your bloodstream. Purslane delivers its omega-3 still wrapped in the antioxidant armor the plant itself built to protect it. The vitamin E sits right alongside the fatty acids in the same leaf tissue, shielding them from degradation at the source. Fish oil capsules deliver omega-3 naked and exposed. Purslane delivers it in full armor. The delivery system is the plant itself. Then there is melatonin. Researchers tested fresh purslane leaves and measured 19,000 picograms per gram. That is remarkably high for any plant on Earth. Melatonin is not just a sleep hormone. Inside the brain, it neutralizes free radicals, stabilizes the mitochondria that power your neurons, and reduces the inflammatory signaling that accelerates neurodegeneration. One leaf of purslane delivers omega-3, vitamin E, vitamin C, glutathione, and melatonin together in a single bite. No supplement stack on the market replicates this combination. Researchers have tested purslane directly against brain damage in the laboratory. In models of Parkinson's disease, purslane extract counteracted the cell death and biochemical destruction caused by neurotoxins in the brain's striatum. That is the region most damaged in Parkinson's patients. Other research showed that purslane reversed cognitive deficits linked to diabetes, with treated subjects demonstrating superior spatial memory and recognition compared to untreated controls. Still others found protection against learning and memory impairments caused by toxic metal exposure. The research exists, it is published, it is peer-reviewed, and almost none of it was funded by Western institutions. Search the largest medical database in the world and search for fish oil brain. Thousands of studies appear, spanning decades of well-funded research. Now search for purslane neuroprotective. You will find a fraction. The ratio tells you a story about money, not about science. Fish oil research receives generous industry sponsorship. Supplement companies fund trials that validate the products already sitting on their shelves. Purslane research receives almost nothing from Western sources. The studies that do exist come from laboratories in Iran, Egypt, China, and South Korea. The knowledge is real, the science is rigorous, and it lives in languages and journals that Western medicine has historically overlooked. Economics explain everything. A plant that grows wild in a sidewalk crack cannot be patented. An oil that requires no factory cannot be licensed. A weed that reseeds itself every single spring cannot generate repeat sales revenue. Purslane threatens every link in the omega-3 supplement supply chain. This is not conspiracy, this is economics. Companies fund research that supports their products. They do not fund research that makes their products unnecessary. The funding follows the patents. The research follows the funding. The knowledge gaps persist. But you do not need a neurologist's permission to grow a plant, and you do not need a prescription to eat it. Purslane thrives in USD, a hardiness zones 2 through 11. That covers the entire continental United States, most of Europe, and equivalent climates worldwide. The plant tolerates poor soil, drought, extreme heat, and the kind of neglect that would kill most garden vegetables in a single week. Because it is a succulent that stores water in its own tissues, it survives where almost nothing else will. Get a container. Any container will do. A 5-gallon bucket, a window box on an apartment ledge, a clay pot sitting on a sunny balcony railing. Fill it with basic potting soil or even ordinary garden dirt. Scatter the seeds across the surface. Barely cover them. Purslane seeds need light to germinate. Mist them with water. Place the container in the sunniest spot you have. That is the entire process. Germination takes 7 to 10 days. By week 4, you will harvest your first leaves. By midsummer, the plants form thick mats of jade green foliage with small, bright yellow flowers that open each morning in the sun. The reddish stems branch and spread until they fill the container completely. Here is the detail that changes everything. A single purslane plant can produce up to 200,000 seeds. Let some of those seeds drop into the soil at the end of the growing season. Next spring, they will germinate on their own without any action from you. No replanting, no purchasing new seed, no annual trip to the garden center. One planting becomes a permanent food supply. You can also root stem cuttings directly in a glass of water on your kitchen counter. Snip a stem, place it in water. Roots appear within days. That is how the title of this video becomes literal. A glass of water and a piece of stem. That is all you need. Eat the leaves fresh for maximum benefit. They taste slightly tart and lemony, with a faint salty finish that surprises most people. Toss them into salads. Blend them into a morning smoothie where the mild flavor disappears, but the omega-3 stays. Wilt them in olive oil for 60 seconds, no more, to keep the fatty acids intact. Add them to a fatouche salad the way families in Beirut have done for generations. Pair with olive oil because the fat-soluble nutrients need dietary fat for absorption. Harvest in the early morning when the omega-3 content peaks. 1 cup of fresh purslane daily. Cost after the first planting is $0. No capsules, no monthly subscription box arriving at your front door, no factory, no cold chain shipping from the other side of the planet. Just a plant on your windowsill and 60 seconds of your morning. The average American household spends between $120 and $300 per year on omega-3 supplements. Fish oil capsules sit in bathroom medicine cabinets. Monthly subscription boxes stack up by the front door. A single packet of purslane seeds costs less than $3. 1 packet provides a permanent self-renewing supply through natural reseeding. The math reveals the absurdity. If supply chains collapse, if pharmacies close, if the monthly delivery stops arriving, the family with purslane growing in a pot on the porch faces no disruption. They harvest leaves for fresh eating. They save seeds for next season. Their brain food supply remains secure regardless of what happens beyond their front door. This is what food security looks like. Not bottles and capsules shipped from factories across oceans. Security is a plant that returns every spring without asking permission. The question was never why the world hid this plant. The world did not hide anything. Greek grandmothers serve it with olive oil on white ceramic plates in the afternoon sun. Mexican families stew it with pork in clay pots that have been in the family kitchen for 3 generations. Turkish villagers fold it into yogurt on ordinary Wednesday afternoons. Chinese physicians documented it 2,000 years ago on paper that still survives in archives. The knowledge was always there, always public, always growing in the cracks. The answer is not conspiracy. The answer is structure. Economic systems fund what economic systems can sell. Research follows funding. Funding follows patents. Patents require control. A weed growing in a sidewalk crack cannot be controlled. What cannot be owned cannot be sold. What cannot be sold does not enter consciousness. The plant does not care about revenue streams. It cares about reproduction. It cares about spreading into every crack and bare patch of soil where sunlight reaches the ground. For 4,000 years, purslane has pursued this single agenda across every continent. It will continue for 4,000 more. The seeds you scatter this week will produce plants within a month. Those plants will drop seeds in the fall. Those seeds will germinate next spring without your help. Your grandchildren could harvest from the same patch you established today. This is not a supplement. This is botanical inheritance. This is your brain's food security measured not in capsules, but in generations. Every spring, purslane will return to remind you that the most valuable things in life often cost the least. A packet of seeds, a glass of water, a few minutes of sunlight, and then years of quiet abundance from a plant that Western neuroscience ignored while half the world ate it for lunch. Walk into a market in Chennai, India tonight. Watch the vendors. They are stacking long green pods in bundles, some thicker than your thumb and nearly 2 feet long. Families buy them by the kilo without hesitation. Children snap the pods open and eat the soft flesh inside like green beans. This is not okra. This is not asparagus. This is something Western grocery stores have never carried. Yet 300 million people across South Asia eat it every single week. Now travel to East Africa. In rural villages across Senegal, Mali, and Niger, women harvest bright green leaves from a tree growing along the edges of their compounds. They spread the leaves on woven mats in the shade, let them dry for 2 days, then grind them into a fine emerald powder using a wooden mortar. They stir this powder into porridge and feed it to malnourished children. Aid organizations distribute the seeds across famine zones. Doctors have watched children too weak to stand recover within days of eating the leaves. The women do not call this a supplement. They call this the never die tree because no drought kills it and no season of neglect stops it from producing. In the Philippines, mothers brew tea from these same leaves after childbirth to promote milk production. Fishermen eat the leaves before heading out at dawn because they provide sustained energy without heaviness. In Guatemala, healers press oil from the seeds and apply it directly to infected wounds. In Haiti, families cook with every part of this tree: the roots, the bark, the flowers, the pods, the leaves. Nothing goes to waste because nothing can afford to. Here is the first clue that something went wrong. In India, people call it the drumstick tree. In the Philippines, it is malunggay. In East Africa, it is nebadaye. In Haiti, it is benzolive. In an ancient Sanskrit text dating back thousands of years, it is shigru. One tree with dozens of names across dozens of languages and no unified identity in English. When a tree has no consistent Western name, it has no consistent presence in databases, cookbooks, or research funding. The fragmentation was not intentional, but the result was erasure. Compare this to quinoa. Quinoa had one name, one story, one marketing campaign. It went from an obscure Andean grain to a Western health food aisle staple in a single decade. This tree never received that unification. It remained foreign in each separate encounter, never familiar, never integrated, never understood. The ancient record tells a different story entirely. In India, nearly 4,000 years ago, physicians documented this tree in some of the earliest medical texts in human history. The Ayurvedic tradition cataloged over 300 conditions treatable with preparations from its leaves, seeds, bark, roots, and flowers. Joint pain, respiratory disease, skin infections, digestive disorders, inflammation, fever. The documentation fills thousands of pages in texts that Western researchers never prioritized for translation. In ancient Egypt, women crushed the seeds of this tree and rubbed the paste against the inside walls of their clay water vessels. The water stored overnight became clearer, safer, drinkable. Egyptian families figured this out thousands of years before modern chemistry could explain why. They did not understand the biochemistry, they just knew the water stopped making their children sick. In sub-Saharan Africa, this tree became inseparable from survival itself. Picture a village in East Africa 300 years ago. The rains have not come. The soil has cracked into hard plates. The millet and maize have withered to nothing. Livestock are dying in the fields, but one tree stands green at the edge of the compound, still producing leaves, still yielding long green pods, still growing while everything else around it dies. Families strip the branches, dry the leaves on mats under shade cloth, and feed the powder to children who have not had a real meal in weeks. Those children recover. The tree survived the drought because it was designed by evolution to survive droughts. It needed almost no water, no fertilizer, no attention, only sunlight and time. The tree is Moringa oleifera. 13 species exist in its genus, but oleifera is the one that changed the world. Scientists have called it the miracle tree. The people who depend on it every day just call it dinner. Moringa grows fast, not garden fast, not tomato fast, infrastructure fast. Under favorable conditions, a moringa tree reaches 10 feet in its first year. Some varieties in tropical climates with steady rainfall push past 15 feet. You plant a seed the size of a marble in a pot on your porch, and 4 months later you are looking up at a tree taller than you are. The first leaf harvest begins within 60 to 90 days of planting. After that first harvest, the tree regenerates. New leaves push out within 6 to 8 weeks. You harvest again. It regenerates again. This cycle repeats throughout the entire growing season without replanting, without reseeding, without purchasing anything at all. And here is what separates moringa from virtually every other crop on Earth. It thrives in poor soil. It tolerates drought. It survives neglect. It grows in regions receiving as little as 250 millimeters of annual rainfall. No pesticides required, no special fertilizers, no irrigation systems. One tree, harvestable protein every 6 weeks from a plant that requires less care than a houseplant. This is not a supplement, this is biological infrastructure. But the leaves hold a secret that even most nutritionists do not fully appreciate. Moringa leaves contain all 9 essential amino acids, all 9. This almost never happens in the plant kingdom. Usually only animal products like beef, eggs, and dairy carry the complete set. Yet moringa delivers every single one with especially high concentrations of leucine and valine. These are the amino acids your muscles need most for repair and growth. Dried moringa leaf contains roughly 27% protein by weight. Beef contains roughly 26%. That comparison is not hypothetical. It is a measured chemical fact. A tree producing more protein per gram than a cow, and doing it with nothing but sunlight, water, and soil. The leaves also deliver vitamin A at concentrations rivaling carrots, calcium levels that exceed milk, iron content that surpasses spinach, vitamin C higher than oranges. These are not supplement label claims. These are laboratory measurements repeated across dozens of independent analyses over decades. But the real revelation came when researchers looked deeper, past the vitamins and minerals, into what the tree actually builds inside its own tissues. Moringa leaves and seeds contain bioactive peptides. These are small protein fragments that carry specific biological functions of their own. Some act as antioxidants powerful enough to function in living human cells. Others inhibit the exact same enzyme that pharmaceutical blood pressure medications target. The tree manufactures its own blood pressure regulators inside its leaves. No factory required, no patent possible. Other peptides show antimicrobial activity, meaning they actively fight harmful bacteria. Still others demonstrate potential for protecting bone density as the body ages. A tree that synthesizes its own pharmacy, blood pressure medicine, antimicrobial agents, antioxidant shields, all through photosynthesis. All from sunlight, soil, and water. Now consider what this means for the protein supplement industry. The global protein supplement market reached approximately $30 billion in 2025. Whey protein, casein, collagen peptides, pea protein isolate. Every product sitting on those store shelves requires industrial extraction, purification, flavoring, packaging, and temperature-controlled shipping. Every product carries a patent or proprietary formulation. Every product generates recurring monthly revenue because the customer must buy it again and again. The average American household spends between $150 and $400 per year on protein supplements. Shaker bottles sit in kitchen cabinets. Monthly subscription boxes arrive at front doors. Tubs of powder dissolve in water and taste like artificial chocolate. Now consider moringa. A single tree grown from a seed that costs less than $1 produces harvestable leaves every 6 to 8 weeks for years. The leaves dry in the shade and grind to powder with nothing more than a mortar and a pestle. No extraction technology, no encapsulation line, no branded packaging required. You cannot patent a tree. You cannot patent sunlight. You cannot patent the act of drying a leaf. A crop that regenerates after every harvest cannot generate repeat seed sales. A protein source requiring no industrial processing cannot generate processing revenue. A product a family produces in their own backyard eliminates every single link in the supplement supply chain. This is why you have never heard of it. Search any medical database for whey protein and you will find thousands upon thousands of funded studies. Search for moringa protein and you find a fraction of that number. Not because moringa is less effective, because moringa has no corporate sponsor. Supplement companies fund trials that support their products. They do not fund research that makes their products unnecessary. The World Health Organization highlighted moringa as a potential solution to global malnutrition as early as the 1970s. Small clinical trials explored its effects on anemia and inflammation through the early 2000s. But the studies stayed small, the funding stayed scarce. The industry looked elsewhere because the industry saw no profit in a tree that anyone could grow in a bucket on a porch. What cannot be owned cannot be sold. What cannot be sold cannot be marketed. What cannot be marketed does not enter Western consciousness. But the protein is not the whole story. The seeds hold something no one expected. Moringa seeds purify contaminated water. Take a single seed, crush it, and stir it into a liter of muddy brown water pulled from a river or a ditch. Within 1 to 2 hours, the dirt, bacteria, and sediment sink to the bottom of the container. The water above becomes clear, drinkable, safe. Proteins inside the seed carry a positive electrical charge that attracts and binds to the negatively charged particles of dirt and bacteria floating in the water. They clump together, grow heavy, and fall. No chemicals, no electricity, no filter cartridge, just a crushed seed and patience. In a world where waterborne diseases kill hundreds of thousands of children every year, a single moringa tree produces thousands of seeds each season. One tree, clean water for a family, clean water for a village. No infrastructure required beyond a bucket and a piece of cloth to strain it. Think about that for a moment. A tree that feeds you complete protein from its leaves and purifies your drinking water from its seeds. Both functions from the same organism. No power grid, no chemical treatment, no supply chain, no subscription. You can grow this tree yourself. Moringa thrives in USDA zones 9 through 11. In warmer climates, it lives outdoors year-round. In cooler regions, it grows beautifully in a large pot that you bring indoors before the first frost. Here is the setup. Soak your moringa seeds in water for 24 hours. This softens the hard outer shell and dramatically improves germination rates. Fill a pot of at least 5 gallons with well-draining soil. Moringa prefers sandy soil with moderate organic content. Plant the seed about an inch deep. Water lightly. Place it in the sunniest spot you have. Germination takes 10 to 12 days. Be patient. Once the seedling emerges, water moderately, but do not drown the roots. Moringa hates standing water. When the tree reaches about 2 to 3 feet tall, cut the top shoot. This single action forces the tree to branch sideways, creating a bushy shape with far more harvestable leaves than a single tall stalk would produce. The visual transformation is something you will not forget. Picture your pot in week 1, bare soil with a single seed beneath the surface. By week 2, a bright green shoot breaks through. By month 2, a slender sapling reaching past your waist. By month 4, you are standing under a tree taller than you with branches loaded with leaves ready for the first harvest. Harvest the leaves. Dry them on a flat tray in the shade to preserve the nutrients. Once completely dry, grind them into a fine green powder. Store in an airtight container in a cool, dark place. 1 spoonful of this powder in a smoothie, a soup, or stirred into a glass of water delivers a measurable dose of complete protein along with vitamins and minerals that most people pay monthly subscriptions to get from a plastic tub. Save the seeds for next season, or press them for oil if you have a simple hand press. The oil resists rancidity naturally and has been used in cooking for centuries across the tropics. The leftover seed cake after pressing works as garden fertilizer or animal feed. Nothing from this tree goes to waste. Consider the scenario that families think about more often than they admit. Supply chains falter, stores run low on shelves, protein powder becomes unavailable or unaffordable. But the family with a moringa tree growing on their patio faces no disruption whatsoever. They harvest leaves for fresh eating, they dry powder for long-term storage, they save seeds for water purification, their protein, their vitamins, and their clean water remain secure regardless of what happens beyond their property line. This is what resilience looks like. Not warehouses full of freeze-dried meals, not capsules shipped from factories across oceans. Resilience is a tree that regrows after every harvest and purifies your water while feeding your family and regenerates itself while you sleep. The question was never why the tropics hid this tree. The tropics hid nothing. Walk through the Koyambedu market in Chennai. Vendors display bundles of drumstick pods in towering stacks. Bottles of golden moringa oil line wooden shelves. Bags of dried leaf powder fill woven baskets. Indian shoppers walk past without a second glance because moringa is as ordinary to them as parsley is to Americans. The extraordinary became ordinary through 4,000 years of daily use. Visit a village in rural Senegal. Women tend moringa trees along their fence lines the way American homeowners tend rose bushes. The leaves go into every pot of food, the seeds go into every jug of drinking water. The knowledge was always there, always public, always available. The answer is not conspiracy. The answer is structure. Economic systems see what benefits economic systems. Research follows funding. Funding follows patents. Patents require control. A tree that grows 10 feet a year, survives drought, produces complete protein, manufactures its own bioactive peptides, and purifies contaminated water cannot be controlled. It regrows, it spreads, it naturalizes, it becomes permanent, it becomes free. 3 generations of Westerners grew up without ever hearing the word moringa, not because anyone hid it, because no one profited from revealing it. The internet is changing this equation one search query at a time. What took decades to overlook may take only years to reverse. The tree does not care about profit margins or revenue models. It cares about growing. It cares about producing leaves and seeds and pods and doing what it has done quietly for 4,000 years across every tropical landscape on this planet. The seed you plant this spring will produce a tree this summer. That tree will produce leaves you can harvest every 6 weeks for the rest of the season. Those leaves will contain every essential amino acid your body requires. The seeds will purify your water, and next spring you can plant the saved seeds and start the whole cycle again. Every season, moringa will return to remind you that the most valuable things in life often cost the least. A seed, a pot of soil, a few minutes of patience, and then years of complete protein from a tree that Western science overlooked, while 1 billion people across the tropics ate it for dinner. Walk into any American pharmacy tonight. Look at the sleep aid aisle. You will see rows of melatonin gummies in purple bottles. Antihistamine tablets are stacked behind plastic dividers. Prescription boxes are lined up behind the counter. This single aisle generates billions of dollars every year. The global melatonin supplement market alone reached nearly $3 billion in 2024, and it is growing at almost 15% annually. 70 million Americans cannot fall asleep at night, and the industry's answer is simple: sell more pills. 1 in 3 adults in the United States does not get enough sleep. The Centers for Disease Control calls it a public health epidemic. Sleep deprivation is linked to heart disease, diabetes, obesity, and cognitive decline. This is not a comfort problem. This is a crisis. Consider melatonin. It is the most popular sleep supplement in America. Families give it to their children. Adults take it every night like a sleeping pill. But melatonin does not actually put you to sleep. It shifts your circadian clock. It tells your body what time zone it is in. The American Academy of Sleep Medicine reviewed the evidence and recommended against using melatonin as a treatment for sleep onset insomnia because the data did not support it working for that purpose. It gets worse. Researchers tested dozens of melatonin products sold in stores across the country. More than 70% did not contain what the label promised. Some had nearly 5 times the listed dose. Others had almost nothing at all. And more than a quarter of the products contained serotonin, a compound that was never supposed to be in a melatonin bottle. Because melatonin is classified as a dietary supplement and not a drug, nobody checks what is inside before it reaches the shelf. The bottle in your bathroom cabinet might contain something you never agreed to take. Now consider the prescription alternatives. Drugs like Ambien and Lunesta work fast, but they come with dependency, cognitive impairment, and morning drowsiness so severe the FDA issued specific warnings about driving after use. Benzodiazepines prescribed for sleep have been linked to increased dementia risk with long-term use. Even the over-the-counter antihistamines that millions of Americans take every night were never designed for sleep. They were designed to stop allergic reactions. The drowsiness is a side effect being marketed as the main feature. Every product in that pharmacy aisle shares one thing in common. You have to buy it again. Monthly refills, subscription boxes arriving at front doors, bottles replaced every 30 days. The entire sleep aid pipeline is built on repeat purchases because a customer who solves their problem permanently is a customer who stops paying. But there is something that works differently, something that does not need a factory, a prescription, or a monthly payment, something that has been putting people to sleep for longer than any of these companies have existed. Picture the Tennessee River Valley 3,000 years ago. Cherokee families living along the riverbanks in the thick heat of summer. The children cannot sleep tonight. A grandmother walks to the edge of the clearing where a heavy green vine climbs a stand of oak trees. She pulls the leaves and tendrils and brews them over a low fire. The children drink. Within the hour, they are asleep. This was not ceremony. This was Tuesday night. The Cherokee used this vine for centuries to treat restlessness, anxiety, nervous stomach, and sleeplessness. They called it OCOEE. The OCOE River and the OCOE Valley in Tennessee still carry that name today, an entire geographic region in the American South named after a plant that most modern Americans have never heard of. In the early 1600s, Spanish missionaries arrived in the Americas and encountered native communities cultivating this vine for both food and medicine. Captain John Smith documented it during his exploration of Virginia as early as 1612, noting that the Native Americans planted and tended these vines deliberately for the fruit they produced. The missionaries were so struck by the flower that they named it for the crucifixion of Christ. The purple filaments represented the crown of thorns. The 5 anthers symbolized 5 wounds. The 12 petals stood for the apostles. They gave it a religious name. They should have given it a medical one. European herbalists adopted the vine within decades of its arrival across the Atlantic. By the 1700s, German apothecaries stocked it on their shelves. British physicians prescribed it to patients. French pharmacies carried it in glass jars. This was not some fringe remedy whispered between village healers. This vine entered the formal pharmacopoeias of Great Britain, the United States, India, France, Germany, and Switzerland. 6 nations. 6 official government documents recognizing this vine as legitimate medicine. In Brazil, families have brewed this vine as a tea for generations to calm anxiety and invite sleep. Walk through a pharmacy in Sao Paulo and you will find standardized extracts of this plant sitting on open shelves right next to prescription medications. The vine is so deeply woven into Brazilian health culture that no one thinks twice about reaching for it. It is as ordinary there as melatonin gummies are in the United States. Except the Brazilian version actually works for the purpose people buy it for. And yet in 2026, you can walk into any American pharmacy and find entire shelves filled with melatonin gummies, antihistamine sleep aids, and prescription sedatives. You will not find this vine anywhere. The disappearance was not medical, it was economic. A vine that grows on a windowsill cannot generate recurring revenue. A plant that returns every spring cannot create repeat seed sales. A remedy brewed in a kitchen cannot be patented, branded, or sold through a subscription model. When the pharmaceutical industry expanded through the 20th century, it needed molecules that could be synthesized, standardized, and protected by intellectual property law. A living vine climbing a garden fence met none of those requirements. So the vine remained in the pharmacopoeias, it remained in the official records. The European Medicines Agency still recognizes it today. Germany still approves it for medicinal use. But no company funded its promotion, no marketing budget pushed it into American consciousness, no television commercial taught 70 million sleepless people its name, and within 2 generations, a remedy that 6 nations officially endorsed became invisible in the country where it grows wild along every roadside fence in the South. The vine is Passiflora incarnata. Most people know it as passion flower. In the American South, it has another name, maypop, named for the popping sound the hollow fruit makes when you step on it in late summer. The word passion has confused the Western world for 500 years. People hear it and think of romance or desire, but the name refers to the passion of Christ, the suffering and crucifixion. Spanish missionaries named this vine for theology. 5 centuries later, most people still do not know what the vine actually does for the human body. The Passiflora genus contains over 500 species scattered across the tropics and subtropics. Only one has been studied extensively for sleep and anxiety, Passiflora incarnata, 1 species out of 500, and it is the one growing wild from Texas to Virginia right now. If you have ever driven along a highway fence in Georgia or walked a roadside trail in Tennessee or the Carolinas, you have probably seen it and kept walking. The flower is unmistakable once you know what you are looking at. Purple and white filaments radiating from the center like a fractal crown. 3 lobed leaves the size of an adult hand, a vine that climbs anything it touches. Fences, mailboxes, tree trunks, power line poles. It looks like something designed in a laboratory. It was shaped by 3,000 years of natural selection in the American Southeast. And here is what clinical research confirmed it does. Your brain has a natural braking system called GABA. When GABA activates its receptors, your neurons slow down. Anxiety fades, muscles release, sleep arrives on its own. Prescription sedatives like Valium and Ambien work by forcing these GABA receptors open. That is why they work fast. It is also why they cause dependency, memory problems, and morning impairment. They are using a crowbar on a lock that was designed for a key. Passion flower uses the key. Researchers discovered that flavonoid compounds inside the vine bind gently to the same GABA receptors that prescription drugs target. But instead of forcing the system open, they enhance its natural function. The vine does what the drugs do, same lock, gentler mechanism, no crowbar. And the proof is not theoretical. It has been tested on real people in controlled settings. Researchers ran a double-blind, placebo-controlled study with 41 adults. Each person drank 1 cup of passion flower tea every night for 7 days and recorded their sleep quality in a diary. At the end of the week, sleep quality ratings were significantly better in the passion flower group compared to placebo. 1 cup of tea, 7 nights, measurable improvement. A separate study went further. Researchers used polysomnography to measure actual brainwave activity during sleep. These were electrodes on the scalp tracking neural patterns in real time. The results showed that total sleep time increased significantly in the passion flower group compared to placebo. But the most remarkable trial compared passion flower directly against oxazepam, a prescription benzodiazepine. 36 patients diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder received either the vine extract or the drug for 30 days. At the end of the trial, there was no significant difference in effectiveness between the 2 treatments. The vine matched the prescription drug. But here is the part that matters most. The patients taking the pharmaceutical reported significantly more problems with job performance the next day. The passion flower group did not. Same calming effect. But only one group could still think clearly at work the next morning. A 2024 study confirmed what the earlier research had shown. Passion flower extract reduced both stress and insomnia symptoms in participants dealing with chronic sleep difficulty. And across the full body of published research, a systematic review found that the majority of studies reported reduced anxiety following passion flower use with no adverse effects observed. No memory loss, no cognitive decline, no dependency, and almost nobody in the supplement industry funded any of it. The most important passion flower sleep studies came from independent researchers in Iran, Australia, India, and Brazil. not from the country selling $3 billion of melatonin every year. A vine that cannot be owned cannot attract investment. The money flows toward patentable molecules. The research follows the money. The knowledge gaps persist. But none of that science matters unless you can grow the vine yourself. And passion flower is one of the easiest medicinal plants you will ever put in soil. Start with a deep pot, 8 to 10 inches at minimum. Standard potting mix from any garden center works fine. Passion flower is not fussy about its growing medium. The seeds have a hard outer coat, so preparation matters. Soak them in room temperature water for 24 hours before planting. Some growers lightly scratch the surface of each seed with fine sandpaper. Either method softens the shell so moisture can reach the embryo inside. Sow the seeds on the surface of the soil or barely cover them with the thinnest dusting of mix. Passion flower seeds need light to trigger germination, so do not bury them deep. Mist gently. Place the pot in a sunny window. South-facing is ideal. The vine wants at least 6 hours of direct sunlight per day. Germination takes 10 to 20 days, sometimes longer. This is where most people give up. Do not keep the soil lightly moist. Keep the light steady. The seeds are working beneath the surface even when nothing visible is happening above it. Once seedlings appear, place a small trellis or bamboo stakes in the pot. Passion flower is a climbing vine, and the tendrils will wrap around anything within reach. String, wire, or a simple wooden frame leaned against the window. The vine grabs hold and pulls itself upward toward the light. Picture your windowsill in week 1. Bare soil with small seeds resting on the surface. By week 3, pale green shoots push through in clusters. By week 8, the vine climbs its trellis and opens those distinctive 3-lobed leaves. By late summer, the flowers appear. Each bloom lasts only a single day, but the vine keeps producing new ones throughout the season. That alien purple crown opens fresh every morning 3 feet from where you sleep at night. If you let some of those flowers mature instead of harvesting them, the vine produces EGG-sized green fruit called May pops. The flesh inside is tangy and aromatic, filled with small seeds suspended in fragrant pulp. The Cherokee ate these for thousands of years, one vine feeding you and helping you sleep. For the sleep remedy, harvest the leaves, stems, tendrils, and flowers. All of them contain the active compounds. The best time to collect is during active growth before the first hard frost of autumn. Dry your harvest in a dehydrator on a low setting or hang small bundles in a warm, dry room for 2 weeks. When fully dried, it should crumble easily between your fingers. To prepare the tea, measure 2 teaspoons of dried passion flower per cup of boiling water. Steep for 10 to 15 minutes. This is longer than a standard herbal tea because the flavonoid compounds need time to release fully into the water. Drink it 30 to 45 minutes before bed. The taste is mild, slightly grassy, a gentle natural sweetness underneath. Nothing like the harsh bitterness of valerian root that makes some people wince before they even finish the cup. For a tincture, combine dried passion flower with vodka at a ratio of 1 part herb to 5 parts liquid. Let it steep 4 to 6 weeks in a dark glass jar. Strain out the plant material. Take 1 to 2 dropperfuls before bed. One healthy vine produces enough dried material for an entire year of nightly tea. Passion flower is perennial in zones 6 through 9. The roots survive winter underground, and the vine returns every spring without replanting. In colder climates, grow it as a warm season annual or bring the pot indoors before frost. Store dried passion flower in a dark glass container in a cool location. It holds potency for 12 months or longer. No capsules, no subscription, no factory standing between you and sleep, just a vine, hot water, and patience. Consider what this means in practical terms. A packet of passion flower seeds costs less than $5 at any garden center or online. One planting produces a perennial vine that returns year after year. That single vine yields enough dried material for 365 nights of tea. Meanwhile, the average American household spends between $120 and $300 annually on sleep supplements that clinical evidence suggests may not even do what the label promises. But the math is not the point. Every natural remedy that cannot be patented follows the same path, used for centuries, listed in official pharmacopoeias, quietly displaced by synthetic alternatives with marketing budgets and shareholder expectations. The vine is still recognized by European medical authorities right now. The vine still grows wild from Texas to Virginia right now. The knowledge never disappeared, it was defunded. Consider a scenario that many families think about more often than they like to admit. Economic disruption closes pharmacies. Supply chains break down. Supplement shipments stop arriving at front doors. Prescription refills become unavailable or unaffordable. The family that depends on a bottle from the store faces a sudden gap in something as fundamental as sleep. But the family with passion flower climbing their windowsill trellis faces no disruption at all. They harvest the leaves, they boil the water, they sleep. This is what resilience actually looks like, not stockpiles of pills sealed in plastic. Resilience is a vine that returns every spring without asking permission, a vine that calms you, helps you rest, and grows back while you are sleeping. The Cherokee grew this vine along the Tennessee River Valley for 3,000 years before a single pharmaceutical company existed on this continent. They did not need a clinical trial to know it worked. They watched their families sleep peacefully and they repeated what they observed. That is the oldest research methodology in human history, and it still works. The vine you plant this spring will bloom this summer. The roots will survive the winter. Next spring it returns. The spring after that, it returns again and again and again. This is not a purchase. This is an inheritance. Every spring, passion flower will climb your windowsill to remind you that the most valuable remedies often cost the least. A packet of seeds, a pot of soil, a few minutes of attention, and then years of quiet, restful sleep from a vine that Western science overlooked while 3,000 years of tradition already had the answer.
The science confirms what the monks preserved for centuries. The myelin sheath is not a mystery. The compounds that repair it are not locked behind patents or pharmacy counters. They grow in volcanic island soil. They climb mountain trellises in Okinawa. They spread across temple gardens in provinces where people live past 100 without pharmaceutical intervention. These plants profit no one. They regenerate overnight. They cost nothing after the first planting. And they were never hidden. You were just never told where to look.